Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Heather Rimmer, and as the chairman of the Wren's Benevolent Trust, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you all to the annual general meeting. Now, it will not have escaped your notice that this AGM is a virtual one. This means it will be a much shorter affair than usual, without a guest speaker and the social interaction which we usually enjoy, as we focus on the business side of the AGM, which we must conclude remain compliant with the regulations of our Royal Charter and the Charity Commission. I am indebted, therefore, to you for still wishing to join us today, to vote if eligible, and I hope you will find the session informative and not too dry. I would also like to thank the RMBT for the loan of this room, the Jellicoe room, and the supporting technology. I believe there are roughly 60 virtual attendees joining us today. Obviously, we would like to return to the usual format next year in HMS Collingwood, but who knows where we will be by then. But to open proceedings today, I would now like to invite our patron, Her Royal Highness, Princess Royal, to address our meeting in a pre-recorded message.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is somewhat ironic that at the last annual general meeting at Trinity House in May 2019, we prided ourselves that while social media and technology had its place in bringing people together, it could not replace that face-to-face interaction that we all enjoy wherever the annual general meeting takes place. Yet some 16 months later, we find ourselves very reliant on technology, not only to keep the business going, but simply to keep in touch with people. Nobody, I suspect, could have predicted that 2020 would be the year of a global pandemic and the impact it has had and will continue to have for many years to come on literally everybody. I know that everyone's experience of lockdown has been different. For some, it has been an opportunity to reflect, learn new skills, and strengthen community ties. While for others, it has been isolating, lonely, and frightening experience. Recognizing that the impact has varied enormously is very important. And I hope that all of you online today, your families, and all those in the wider community that the Trust serves, are and remain safe and well, and feel able to access help if needed. And what help there has been available. During 2019, the Trust spent over £413,000 in the delivery of its financial objectives. The full details are in the annual report and will be covered by your chairman and treasurer. Once more, the Trust has received an increasing number of legacies. The administration of 18 estates was completed, and an extraordinary sum of £344,511 donated, with a further £147,000 in the pipeline at the year end. These very generous donations are an ongoing testimony to the unique bonds and camaraderie forged by service in the Women's Royal Naval Service, which leads individuals to want to ensure that those in distress may always be helped and supported. Finances were boosted by fundraising income from Jane Allen's Victory Walk, which raised over £30,000 split between the Trust and the Royal Navy and Royal Marines charity. As you may remember, Jane was the guest speaker at our last annual general meeting, and she provided us with that inspiring, humbling, and humorous account of her and husband Frank's great and very eventful adventure. The plan had been for Jane to present cheques to the two charities at today's event, but the pandemic has thwarted both that plan and her efforts to raise further funds through speaking engagements. No doubt she will be very busy next year. We certainly thank you, Jane, and your husband for undertaking this challenge on behalf of both charities and for raising a magnificent sum, which exceeded all our expectations. The Trust will spend the funds carefully on those former members of the Women's Royal Naval Service who, for various reasons, have fallen through the cracks and require our support. In addition, we really appreciated the opportunity that the Victory Walk, and the Victory Van in particular, offered to enable the name of our now very small charity to be promoted across the country and in an array of publications. One of our great challenges is to remind all those women who served in the Women's Royal Naval Service that their charity is still operating for their benefit. 2019 was another Dauntless Association reunion year, which resulted in a large number of former Wrens enjoying themselves immensely at Hayling Island last autumn, whilst significant funds were raised for both the Trust and other charities. I would like to thank their small but very efficient committee for their continued support to the Trust. The trustees decided in 2019 to refresh the actuarial review, and this is an important exercise to help the Trust plan for the future in terms of the remaining numbers of potential beneficiaries, taking into account UK mortality rates, current levels of casework, external influences, and other relevant factors. The 2019 report, needless to say, could not have envisaged a pandemic, but would say there had been no real significant changes to any of those markers as such. And on that basis, I think we can be assured the Trust will remain viable for a further decade, pandemic or no pandemic. Rest assured that all those eligible for support will always be provided for, even if that may be under slightly different arrangements. In 2020, the Trust had plans to work closely with the Association of Wrens to help celebrate their centenary. Sadly, of course, these plans, both at national and local level, have had to be cancelled for this year. But I am told it is merely a matter of postponement, and that when circumstances permit, the events will go ahead in 2021. As the chairman of the Centenary Committee so aptly put it, the events will take place and will be more enjoyable because of our determination, our expectancy and longing to celebrate who we are, our heritage and our future. The Trust remains as relevant and responsive as ever and is prepared and geared up to deal with whatever the coming months may bring. I thank you all for your continued support and engagement with the Trust, which is unwavering and enables the Trust to meet its objectives. I hope you enjoy the meeting, but I do look forward to the time when we can all meet again in person, and I really hope that is not too far off. Thank you.
As always, we are most grateful for the close interest the patron has always taken in the work of the Wrens BT, and we sent her our very best wishes on the occasion of her 70th birthday last month. I'd just like to introduce the other panellists here with me this afternoon. To my right is Commander Liz Walmsley, our Treasurer, and to my left, Captain Catherine Jordan, our Vice Chairman. I would also wish to draw your attention, for those of you who do not already know, to the sad news of the death of one of our Vice Presidents, Nancy Thompson, who died in March this year. Nancy enjoyed a full career in the Wrens, joining in 1954 as a signals Wren at HMS Mercury. 2 years later, she was commissioned and undertook a huge variety of roles, which included Wren's recruiting officer, taking charge of the twice yearly Petty Officer Wren's leadership course at HMS Royal Arthur, head of the Commander-in-Chief Management Information Centre, and she was also a member of the Cadet Entry and Admiralty Interview Boards. In 1977, Nancy was appointed Deputy Director Wren's, and whilst acting as the Royal Navy Charities Coordinator, she became a member of the Wren's BT Grants Committee, which was the start of a long relationship with the Trust. Nancy left the Wren's in 1979 and took on the role as a Civil Service Commissioner. She became chairman of the Wren's BT in 1986, and it is said that her meetings were a pleasure to attend. She was charming, persuasive, quick-witted, and used a light touch, all of which made those meetings enjoyable, but also very efficient. During her tenure as chairman, she oversaw the introduction of modern technology for the Trust staff. I do wonder what she might have made of Zoom, absorbed the implications of Wren's at Sea and the impact on the Trust and the Royal Charter, and then commenced the discussions to move the Trust's offices from London to Portsmouth. She passed on the chair's reins to Mary Brown in 1991 and became Vice President of the Trust in 1992. She lived quietly in Southsea during her retirement and spent her final years in a care home. We will remember Nancy with gratitude for her enduring interest and support, as well as her generosity to the Trust. We will now move on to item 2 of the agenda. The minutes of the 77th Annual General Meeting have been circulated. Only those who served in the Wren's are entitled to vote and so received voting packs. All other attendees will have received an information pack. I can confirm that we have received the necessary votes for the adoption of the minutes, and so I will now sign the master copy. Agenda item 3. I will now take you the usual course of going through our annual report for 2019, picking out points of note and beginning on page 5 with the risks. I do not intend to reiterate what is written there, but suffice to say the Trust takes risk management very seriously. All the risks are reviewed annually every August, and continuous efforts are made to mitigate them as far as possible. Moving on to page 6 and grants. Last year, we assisted 184 beneficiaries, including 11 residing overseas. This represents a small drop from 209 in 2018. However, the total value of regular and one-off grants came in very close to budget at £284,080. This decrease in numbers is not considered significant and is in line with the most recent report from our actuary. Looking at our grants expenditure in more detail on page 6, you will see that the overall value of the weekly grants issued in 2019 increased against 2018. And this is mainly due to increased expenditure for residential and domiciliary care. The level of all our grants compares favourably with those provided by similar charities and are subject to annual review. The flexibility of the weekly support supplement, which may be used as a temporary measure where individual circumstances are expected to improve, remains particularly effective. Similarly, the one-off general amenity grant is also continuing to prove a useful tool, with the number of regular recipients remaining steady at 29. Setting regular grants aside, the next highest area of expenditure of £29,619 was spent on medical aids. There is an excellent example on page 11 of how the funding of an electric scooter for one of our younger beneficiaries made a huge difference to her life and gave her back some much needed independence. Now at this point, I would like to mention one lady we both helped and gained additional assistance for. This 79-year-old wheelchair-bound Wren had in autumn 2018 been served with notice to vacate her long-term privately rented accommodation by a landlord who wished to sell the property. Our lady, who had an impeccable financial history, had been misled by the letting agent, who had advised that the property was being sold with a sitting tenant, a point the landlord subsequently denied rather late in the day. While both the Citizens Advice Bureau and Shelter were engaged, the Trust pledged its maximum grant of up to £4,000 in this emergency to help with relocation costs, while asking Greenwich Hospital and the British Legion to help, which they did. Sadly, a new rental fell through as the former landlord failed to provide a reference. Liaison with the local council brought only offers of bed and breakfast accommodation, which was unsuitable for the disability-related needs of Our Lady. With Our Lady having to frequently move from friends' houses to hotels and back, accruing credit card debt along the way in her fight for survival, she was unable to move into permanent housing until April 2019. But I'm pleased to report that she is now well settled and happy in her new home. Thanks to help from other charities, the Trust was able to use the residue of its pledge, not only to help her move in, but additionally award a temporary regular charitable payment for 12 months to help meet unavoidable debt accrued during this prolonged and very stressful period. Our Lady's undoubted mental positivity and resilience were tested in full. And while when low she had to seek help from her GP, she felt constantly buoyed by regular email and telephone contact with both the Trust and her SAFA caseworker. She was also a most grateful recipient of a Dauntless Association Christmas hamper during those dark days, and has taken the opportunity to express thanks for all the continued generosity, support, and kindness that she has received. For information, in all cases of debts and arrears, applicants are referred for debt management action to bodies such as Seafarers Advice and Information Line, Step Change, and the Citizens Advice Bureau, who expertly support the often complex needs of applicants. Further examples of the support we have provided can be found on the inside front cover and at pages 9 to 11 of the report, and include help towards digital hearing aids, respite breaks, care costs, removal expenses, and hospital visits. There is also one particularly touching short note from the 26-year-old daughter of a 51-year-old former Wren who died very suddenly and in tragic circumstances. The Trust increased the maximum one-off grant to £4,000 in 2016. While 6 such grants were approved during 2019, 5 were subsequently reduced when we successfully harmonised with other charities, which effectively shared the cost. A point I would like to draw your attention to is the expenditure on education grants, where expenditure dropped significantly in 2019. Our Royal Charter allows for those wishing to retrain in order to be able to better support themselves and their families. And while there is no obvious reason for the drop-off, it is an area we would welcome new applications. The number of applicants approaching the Trust for the first time was 55, a small increase against 49 in 2018. Returning applicants numbered 50, a small decrease from 67 in 2018. The graph on page 8 of the report depicts the age breakdown of those we have helped over the past 3 years. You will see that while we are continuing to help a significant number of ladies in their 80s and 90s, the number of younger women requiring our assistance also remains steady. It is likely that many of these will continue to require a helping hand from the Trust, and your trustees remain confident that the Trust's strategic plan, which is based on the recently refreshed actuarial review, is well founded. As always, we are very grateful for the support provided by SAFA, the Officers Association, the Royal British Legion and the Royal Commonwealth Ex-Services League in identifying potential applicants and beneficiaries. The casework provided by these organisations can be quite complex, especially with regard to our younger applicants. Our grants administrator, Roger Collins, undertakes significant background research to ensure your grants committee have all the information they need to make the right decisions. The reduction in cases received now allows much more time and care to be spent on current and individual wider needs. As previously mentioned, the Trust works closely alongside other charities, sharing outreach opportunities. And it is good to know that many representatives from those organisations which support us are attending today. We are also most grateful for the support of all those individuals and organisations mentioned on pages 13 to 14 of the report. We are enormously appreciative of those who remember the Trust in their wills, and details of the most generous legacies and in memoriam donations received during 2019 are provided at pages 15 and 16 of the annual report. Our Treasurer will provide further details of our income from legacies in her report. The Trust, as ever, remains extremely grateful to the members of the Association of Wrens and Women of the Royal Naval Services for all that they do on our behalf. Details of the totals raised specifically with the Trust by the Association branches and informal groups are provided on page 16 of the report. While lower than in previous years, it is fully understood that their focus had been on planning for their centenary year. It is therefore very sad that most of their events and plans have had to be postponed due to coronavirus, and we sincerely hope that they will be able to reschedule for next year. It must be particularly sad for Jill Stellingworth, who after 3 years at the helm of the association retires very shortly and before any of the centenary events have been held. We wish Jill all the very best for the future and look forward to working with her successor, Nancy Hill. Now, we are often asked by members or their families if we can provide a contact for those who are feeling socially isolated now that they are not as mobile as they used to be. In addition to playing an important role in bringing the Trust to the notice of potential beneficiaries, the association also plays an important role in helping to put these women in touch with one another. At this point in my speech, I would normally draw your attention to any forthcoming events. Sadly, and due to current restrictions, I do have to report that this year's joint fundraising dinner with the association has now actually been cancelled. As ever, huge thanks are also due to our trustees, the members of the Central, Grants, Finance and Quality Assurance Committees, our ambassadors, our General Secretary and Assistant Secretary, and all those willing volunteers who support us throughout the year. Now, although this AGM is a summary of the work undertaken by the Trust in 2019, I do not feel I can forego mention of the unprecedented times we are currently living through due to a global pandemic. Now, while there has been no upsurge in applications for support over the last 6 months, which has been a common experience across other charities, with furlough schemes about to finish and more job losses expected, that situation is not expected to endure. I therefore wish to provide reassurance that the Trust remains financially well placed to respond as quickly as possible to any increase in applications, and we will continue to work with other charities to ensure the best outcomes for all individuals. I shall now call for, on the final time, on Commander Liz Walmsley, our Honorary Treasurer, to present the balance sheet and statement of accounts.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 financial year saw good results for the Trust. Whereas the previous year I reported net losses, for 2019 the accounts show net income of £592,000, which included gains in the value of our investments of £471,000. Disregarding these investment gains, there was an operating surplus of £121,000 against our planned budget deficit of £236,000, and this was primarily due to the receipt of legacies. This contributed to an increase of £109,000 overall in the Trust's cash position. Our main sources of income are legacies, dividends, and interest from our investments and donations. So looking at each in turn, income from legacies totaled an amazing £344,500, an increase of £211,000 compared with the previous year. There were 5 receipts which exceeded £10,000, and the largest being for an extraordinary amount of £162,500. At the end of the year, the Trust had also been notified of further legacies in the region of £163,000 relating to 9 estates, the administration of which had yet to be completed, but they should all reach the recognition criteria for accounting within 2020. As the Chairman said earlier, we continue to be extremely grateful to all those who remember us in their wills for their thoughtful contributions to the continued work of the Wrens BT, and it really does make an enormous difference. Legacy income clearly fluctuates greatly from year to year, and so dividends from our investments are a most reliable and constant source of annual income. In 2019, investment income bounced back slightly from the previous year to £142,000, mainly due to the increase in cash holdings and the slightly higher interest rates at the time. This provided approximately 49% of the monies needed to cover our grants expenditure, or 34% towards the overall cost of running the Trust. Income from donations, fundraising and rebates remain consistent with the levels received in 2018. Fundraising receipts included £14,700 from Jane Allen's Victory Walk, and as explained earlier, her appeal is still open and she will continue to raise funds at various presentations and talks when she can. The Dauntless Association Friday night fundraiser, which amounted to £2,857, the cake sale at Collingwood, which raised £561, and the fundraising dinner, which raised £1,235 each for the Trust and the Association of Wrens. And these figures all exclude gift aid. There has also been an increasing and very welcome number of Facebook birthday fundraisers. Our huge thanks go to Jane, our ambassadors, and our many supporters for all that they have done for the Trust. Moving on to expenditure, grants expenditure increased by 3.1% against last year and totaled £284,000. And you've already heard from the Chairman an overview of how grants were awarded. Investment management fees increased slightly to £24,000, which reflects the rise in the value of our portfolio. Fundraising costs and publicity costs were higher in 2019, primarily due to a reallocation of costs apportioned within the General Secretary's work streams, and support costs conversely decreased for the same reason, and also due to the reduction in the working hours of the Trust's 2 members of staff, together with other measures put in place to reduce overheads. Governance costs includes items such as legal fees, accountancy, and meeting expenses, and these costs doubled in 2019 due to the actuarial refresh, organising the new staff contracts, and the AGM being held in London. Looking briefly at the balance sheet, there were no significant capital purchases in 2019, which after depreciation resulted in a decrease in the overall value of fixed assets. As mentioned earlier, the Trust's investment portfolio rose significantly due to the recovering market performance, with unrealised gains of £471,000. The other debtors include prepaid insurances, accrued income from investments, bank accounts, and 4 legacies, which, although paid out in 2020, met the sought criteria, such as they had to be recognised in the 2019 accounts. So overall, taking into account all assets and liabilities, the Trust closed the year with unrestricted funds of £4.4 million, which represents an overall increase of £592,000 compared to the previous year. The Trust continues to hold sufficient funds to meet the anticipated needs of the charity. As in previous years, the trustees do not intend to request any significant external grants for 2020, and in the unlikely event of cash shortfall in year, will draw down on its investments in accordance with the strategic plan, which is based around the predictions of our actuarial review. In addition to all those our chairman has already thanked for their kindness and generosity, I would also like to thank Gavin Witter and his team for their detailed and supportive work in auditing our accounts for the first time. James New, our bank manager at NatWest, and Miranda Thompson-Schwab representing our investment managers at Brewin Dolphin. I'd also like to thank the Finance Committee and Nadia Sutherland for volunteering as our external independent financial advisor. And my personal thanks go to our General Secretary and Grants Administrator for their consistent hard work, guidance and support. So this concludes the financial review. But just finally, this is my 7th and final Treasurer's report to our members, and it has been wonderful that it has been such a positive one. I'm really grateful to Maggie Bolam for volunteering to take on the role, subject to your vote of course, and can only apologise for handing over at such a financially volatile time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Okay, moving on then with the agenda. The trustees have agreed the annual objectives for the Trust for 2020, and they are to continue to satisfy the need of applicants assessed as requiring a grant, to review all regular grants on an ongoing basis, to review the Trust performance against the output of the refreshed actuarial review and strategic plan, to develop further the Trust's relationship with other Royal Naval charities, to build on the increased awareness resulting from the Victory Walk to further the work of the Trust, to support the Association of Wrens and Women of the Royal Naval Services in their centenary year, and to implement the replacement casework management system. Agenda item 4. I have received a proposal from Chief Petty Officer Sandra Parkinson, a trustee, to propose adoption of the 78th annual report together with the balance sheet and statement of accounts for 2019, and Mrs. Alison Gott, a trustee, agreed to second the resolution. The votes from the voting packs have been counted, and I can confirm that the motion is carried. Agenda item 5. The nominations for election have been circulated, and voting members were asked to approve the list of those nominated for office in 2020 to 2021. Now this year we are saying goodbye to a number of our team, including one of our stalwarts, Commander Maggie Robbins, who has been involved with the Trust as a serving representative from 1992 to 1996, before returning as a member of the Grants Committee in October 2006, stepping up to the post of chairman of that committee in 2007, before now stepping down. We're very happy that Maggie has agreed to be nominated as a Vice President for the Trust in order that we may continue to utilise her expertise, experience and wiseness. Mrs. Alison Gott's tenure as a Governor ends at this meeting, and we are very fortunate that she has agreed to take on the role of Chairman of the Grants Committee. Alison has spent a year shadowing Maggie and is looking forward to the challenge of this new role. During Alison's time as a governor, she was a member of the successful Wren's 100 committee and led on all the merchandising activity. She is also a member of the Quality Assurance Group, which amongst other tasks undertakes the annual internal audit. As an eBay junkie, she has played a key role alongside the General Secretary in getting everything together for the forthcoming eBay auction of donated items. Due to take place between the 1st and 9th of October, details of this may be found on the Trust's website. Now, it's hard to believe that it's 7 years since Commander Liz Walmsley joined our team as Governor and Honorary Treasurer. She has provided invaluable support to our General Secretary in relation to all financial matters, as well as straightforward financial reports backed up with wise counsel to our finance and central committees. And during that period, she has launched her own business and now is in a position to enjoy many more happy walking holidays using her motorhome Doris as a base, as Matt, her husband, has now finally retired from the Royal Navy. We wish them both well in their future adventures. As you heard, Maggie Boland has kindly offered to step in and take on both of Liz's Governor and Honorary Treasury roles. You will have seen from the biography on the reverse of the election sheet that Maggie has an excellent background for both these posts. Commander V. Hooton has agreed to take on the remaining role of Governor, and although she was only a Wren for a short time before the service closed, you will have seen her very extensive CV detailed on the election sheet. Warrant Officer Paula Price has been a serving representative on the Central Committee since 1995, with a few breaks for service at sea. She has also served on the Finance Committee and helped to provide the grassroots view during trustee discussions. Paula has supported the General Secretary in representing the Trust at numerous events, and as she retires from the Royal Navy, we thank her for her long-standing support and wish her well with her new beauty therapy business. Paula's replacement is Chief Petty Officer Aurora Allen, who has been involved with the Trust as a member of the Grants Committee since 2015. Aurora is currently working in the Personnel Administration Training Wing at the Defence College of Logistics and Policing Administration at Worthy Down in Winchester. The Central Committee unanimously supports all these nominations. I have received a proposal from Mrs. Barbara Hines, a Governor, to propose that the nominations for the Central Committee and our Vice Presidents be adopted. In addition, Lieutenant Commander Jane Pitsey, a serving representative, agreed to second the resolution. The votes from the voting packs have been counted, and I can confirm that the motion is carried. We now come to the appointment of our auditors. Gavin Witter from Gibson Witter is present today, and his team have now completed their first year as the Trust's auditors. The Central Committee was very pleased with the seamless transition on their initial appointment and for all the support they have since provided. I have received a proposal from Commodore Annette Picton, a trustee, to propose that Gibson Witter be appointed as auditors to the Trust for the current year. Mrs. Ollie Butler, a Governor, has agreed to second the resolution. The votes from the voting packs have been counted, and I can confirm that the motion is carried. With voting now complete, we look forward to dining out our leavers and welcoming our joiners later this year when circumstances allow. Now, ladies and gentlemen, although that concludes the formal business of this meeting today, I have one outstanding action to perform, which is to present flowers on behalf of the Trust to Commander Liz Walmsley, as she is here at my side. Now, just in case you're wondering, the other retiring members of the Trust have received similar gifts through the post or in person, as and when we have seen them. So, both of you, thank you very much. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Finally then, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for joining us today, and I hope to see you next year at the AGM in Collingwood. And if you wish to relive this experience, it will be uploaded onto the Trust's website in due course. Thank you very much.